office team while we are fixing this up. I should say that I am not normally a superstitious person, but I am beginning to get a bit superstitious. The first point is that, well, I think the first time my title was announced, title was wrong. My abstract, I submitted it, it is missing from the book, and then to top it all, I got only salad and dessert for food, so maybe I should just give the introduction and the conclusions. So just to make the point about the abstract, it is quite a longish abstract. It was given along with the thing, right? You see, this paper begins with abstract. So I did submit it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Alright, so let me go on. Title of my paper, it is not a broad-based theme, it's a very specific theme it's a progress report on what Multiversity has done. That's what the paper is about. What did we do all these years, particularly with regard to the things which I took up on mathematics and science and related areas. So I was assuming that everybody would read the abstract, would read the paper and come prepared. And so my presentation was made accordingly. I'm sorry that it doesn't, well, I tried to cover what I did in the paper, but I thought I would talk about something else. I would focus on some of the new things. So, one of the new things is a fresh understanding of colonization. So if we had the older understanding, that was based on Macaulay's earlier paper. So, Macaulay's earlier minute on education we have all heard of, but I think we have to change from that. That is out of date. The new thing is the speech that Macaulay gave to the British Parliament in 1847. How many of you have read it? You read it. So what does he say there? What he says in the 1847 speech in British Parliament, I think we need to look at that, is that education is the cheapest means of preventing revolt. Education for the poor. He said education for the rich, okay, right? Look at Adam Smith. They can take care of their education. But for the British poor, the cheapest means of countering revolt. It was just written a few months maybe before the Communist Manifesto. And he gives the same idea of a spectre mounting Europe. So now the point is, education, colonial education or Western education was not meant only for the colonized. It was meant for the ruled class. And it was meant to suppress revolts. Now how does education suppress revolt? I mean, by a strange coincidence, British education was introduced in India in 1857 when there was a major revolt, as all of you know. But how does education suppress revolt? Why did that man connect these two? Because that was a speech to the British Parliament. So basically, we all know the general answer that colonial education captures the mind. But how does it capture the mind and why does it capture the mind? So these are some of the things that have been written now. This is some of the new stuff. So basically, education in the time of Macaulay was a pure church monopoly. Western education in the time of let me correct myself, in the time of Macaulay was a pure church monopoly. There were other systems of education. And this Western education was controlled by the church, higher education since its inception at the University of Bologna during the Crusades. Well, you can dispute the date, that's not important. And this church education, because it was clearly designed to produce missionaries as a way of winning the Crusades by other means, by persuasion. It was designed to mass produce missionaries. And so that was its objective. So, how do you produce a missionary who has to have faith, who has to go and teach things contrary to facts, contrary to common sense, not only believe them, but propagate them? And so there is a simple trick, there are two simple tricks how to capture the mind. First thing is teach ignorance, don't teach anything. Yesterday I asked why is 2 plus 2 equal to 4, let me ask again, does anybody know why is 2 plus 2 equal to 4? We are university, we are teaching, we are in the business of education. Everywhere I go, every university I go, I ask this question, I don't get an answer. It's not a rhetorical question. Banaras Hindu University, they don't have an answer. Delhi University, they don't have an answer. JNU says, don't even come to ask the question. Everywhere I go, this is the same state of affairs. Why is 2 plus 2 equal to 4? We don't know. What kind of education system do we have? Which does not teach one this. And we are not ashamed of it. There is a big problem. There's a big problem right here, and that is because you are being taught ignorance. The function is to teach you that. Why? Because if you are ignorant for everything, you have to rely on someone. You have to ask an expert. But if you are ignorant, how can you judge expertise? You cannot judge expertise. You have to proceed on trust. You have to proceed on faith. So this is a way of teaching faith. A person who has knowledge will proceed on knowledge. A person who lacks knowledge has to proceed on faith. He has no option. He or she has no option. So that faith can be guided. Whom should you trust? You should trust the best and have no respect, have contempt for others. Now this is something we keep doing today. If you want something, where do you look? You Google. Where does Google take you? To Wikipedia. What does Wikipedia do? Rely only on secondary sources. Which secondary sources are reliable? Only Western secondary sources are reliable. You put up anything else and it will delete it. Try it. By definition, only secondary sources, and by definition, if it comes from Oxford University, it's reliable. If it comes from somewhere else, it's not reliable. That's it. That's a tacit thing. So the point is not, the same formula which was used to produce good slaves for the church, or you produce slaves for the empire, or you produce slaves for capital. That's not the issue. For whom are you producing slaves? The point is you are producing slaves. The education is designed to produce slaves. And if I want to educate my children, I don't want to educate them to become slaves. I want to treat them, I want to teach them to become free persons, free human beings. Education must be designed for emancipation, not for enslavement. Alright, so that's the issue, that's how it captures the mind, because it teaches you all the time to rely solely on Western authorities whom you should trust. Alright. So, therefore, decolonization is necessary to produce leaders. If you want slaves, you want followers, have colonial education. Otherwise, you want to have decolonization. It is absolutely essential to rethink the entire education system. Alright, let me take an example to show you how your trust is guided. Now, Stephen Hawking, everybody perhaps knows of my claim that Stephen Hawking, what he does is Christian propaganda, not science. Alright, I have explained this. The 11 pictures of time, I don't know how much time I've got. I explained it in newspaper articles. One of them which I showed yesterday. Maybe I can show it to you, but I'm afraid I'll lose my navigation. So maybe I'll show it to you again. The point is, yesterday a question was raised. How do you decide the truth of that claim? I made a certain claim. This is happening. How do you decide the truth of the claim? If you want to decide, what do you have to do? There are one way of doing it, that you know everything and you judge and you speak of your own knowledge. But what all do you have to learn? You must know general theory of relativity, you must understand generalized functions, you must understand Augustine's theology, you must understand Aquinas' theology. That's the latest version of Aquinas' theology. What was considered 11 pictures of time is Augustine's theology. So how do you do all that? How much time does it take? It will be 10 years. Probably take you maybe more, because if you start at a late age, it will probably take longer to learn. So what do? So you take a shortcut. Because most people in the world, about 5 people know what is happening. About 5 people understand all that stuff and know what is happening. Most of them will try to guess the truth. How do you guess the truth? You grope in the dark, right? So the idea is to guide those guesses, right? What if you, for example, ask, well, one thing is of course Wikipedia, I think I already second thing is, you can't confusing propaganda. So you asked the question yesterday, oh, he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in God. So that's a one-liner which accompanied, which was part of the propaganda for his book, for his latest book. So it adds credibility, doesn't it? This guy doesn't believe. Now what are you doing? You are assessing credibility. Is Hawking credible? Is Sikheradu credible? And how do you assess it? You assess it using this kind of stuff which misleads you all the time. Either you look at Wikipedia, or you look at this sort of confusing propaganda, or you look at propaganda. I mean, I don't know why Muslims don't use this propaganda. They look, this guy is not Muslim, he is supporting somebody, so therefore he is more credible. It's propaganda meant for people. Or the third thing, the third line formula is that you plant confusing criticism about the critic. You abuse the critic. And this is meant for those gullible people who don't ever bother to find out on what basis it is done. So these are the three ways. You go to secondary sources, very popular source, Wikipedia, everybody believes, or you try to judge by means of confusing propaganda, or you do this sort of thing, you destroy trust in the critics. That's how it is. Okay, and don't ask about the qualifications of these crank certifiers. Say this guy is a crank. This happened at the end of the previous conference we had. There were some people who certified, oh, this guy is this guy is that. They don't give any reasons. They don't criticize the thesis. They don't have any arguments against the thesis. They have arguments always against the person. It's a sure sign of this sort of stuff. But then it is hard for people to understand and to grasp it. Okay, so this was one new thing that has come up. The second new thing which has come up is the recent situation in India. What's the recent situation in India? We know that the government has changed. And very recently, last month, a whole lot of statements were made by various ministers, by the Prime Minister and so on. A whole lot of claims were made about history. So that was the first thing that Uncle Idris asked me. What is this about Ganesh's head transplant? Alright, so these kinds of claims are made. The Science and Technology Minister talked about the Pythagorean theorem, and the Education Minister, she keeps saying many things anyway. So this led to a huge response everywhere in the newspapers, magazines, everywhere, whole lot of things coming up. What is this guy talking about? You know, he's talking about myth. Myth cannot be used for history and so on. And you must have evidence for history. Right? Also, I mean, every newspaper has a special issue on Sunday, and all the magazines are full of it, and the TV programs are full of it, and so on. It's a huge thing which has gone on. They even gave me some space. Anyway, that's the point. That this demand for evidence, this demand saying, don't believe myths without evidence, it suits us perfectly. Because that's what we have been saying, but that's what we have been saying about Western history. We have been demanding evidence. I have been demanding evidence for the last 10 years. Please give me evidence about Euclid. Why is Euclid in the school text? Why is Euclid in the school text, and what do the authorities do? What does that lady do who heads NCERT, Parveen Sinclair? I told in front of her in the year 2007. What does she do? She changes one picture of Euclid because it's a racist stereotype. So she takes a picture of a Chinese-looking Euclid from Needham, and she's satisfied with that. But she does not provide evidence, she does not remove it, because that myth is important. As you say, narratives are central, myths are central. And so that is there, and this is discussed in my book. Now I think I should try and navigate to this. I hope I succeed. No, I didn't succeed. The link is bad. I'm sorry. So I will show it to you maybe at the end of the day. Have you seen my book, Is Science Western in Origin? What I wanted to show you was the picture. Maybe I can show it to you here. Should show you that picture now. So yeah, here is the picture. You have the picture right here. Let me put it a little bit up. So this is the picture. As you can see, these are four guys hanging upside down. That is Euclid, Ptolemy, Newton, and Copernicus. Right? Why are we hanging them upside down? Because there is no evidence for history of this sort. There is no evidence for the history of Euclid. I have offered a 10,000 ringgit prize in front of Dr. Saifuddin Abdullah, and it is on record, and that prize stands unclaimed for serious evidence about Euclid. But our school texts don't change because that myth is sacrosanct. How dare you challenge Western authority? Where is the evidence? They would reduce the demand for evidence. Now they have come online. Because they are demanding evidence for other kinds of myths, they have to demand evidence for these myths as well. They cannot escape that demand. Besides, they won't get state support. So this demand for evidence was earlier dishonestly rejected by colonized academics on the strength of authority. How dare you demand evidence? Something wrong with you. You are challenging Euclid, you are challenging. Where is the evidence of Pythagoras that he existed? Where is the evidence that he had a proof? There is plenty of counter evidence that there is no proof. Till the 20th century, certainly there is no proof of the Pythagorean theorem, no axiomatic proof. Empirical proofs existed, they were known in Babylon, they were known to Egyptians, they were known to Indians long before Pythagoras, long before his supposed date. Let me be precise. So the demand for evidence is rejected, total silence. We have state power. What did Sam Petroda say? He said, why are you doing this? Oh, we have the power, so we will do it. That was a blanket statement. Now if somebody else has the power, why shouldn't they do it? Still, I would say to engage people in discussion, that is what should be done. So this demand was dishonestly rejected by these people who are totally short-sighted, who think that they could get away with it, and they have not got away with it. They have crashed. This is what has happened. They did not have a proper strategic view. They took tactical decisions, and they have failed. So, well, I have already mentioned this price about Euclid. I mentioned the NCERT text, which still carries the picture of Euclid, which I am sure I will get deleted in the next 1 year. Why is that important? That is important because the false history of science was used in the process of colonization. What did Macaulay say? One shelf of the Western library is superior to all the knowledge of the Orient. He was a historian. A big historian is what Marx called it. He should have known by 1830. It was known to Britishers that in English journals it was published that there was calculus in India. He should have known. So either he was dishonest or he was just twisting history. So this is what he said. Calculus is the basis of science, is the basis of science today. All your equations of science are partial differential equations which have to be written using that. And calculus did originate in India, it was transmitted to Europe, and the worst part is it was not understood properly. Yes, please. 5 minutes. You know, I just started. I was struggling with this connection. So I will take some part of Zulun's time, which he very nicely left. The point here is that this colonized history, well, the colonized people never checked this history for 2 centuries. They never asked for evidence. They swallowed it all on mere faith. And they aggressively rejected the demand for evidence. Okay, so I have covered that. So recall also, you see, because he said for science, you see, science is what you want Western education for. That Western education and the demand for English teaching is justified on grounds of science and technology. And this is particularly true of revolutionary societies like Iran. They can't get rid of it. Because you want science, you want this, and once you have the reward, you come under pressure, under economic pressure, under military pressure, and then what is your way out? Way out is the quick development of science for the military and for the economy. So ready-made science education is only available from the West. You have to start building process of decolonization and of decolonizing education before you take any move, before you make any move in that direction. And therefore, decolonization of hard sciences, of mathematics and science is very important. Everybody understands the social sciences. But mathematics and science are supposedly universal. They are not. They are not universal, and this is what I have been doing. So this is where decolonization should begin, by undoing false history of science. This is what was recommended in the Iranian conference on ending academic imperialism. Susan is here, yes, which volume was came out under her editorship, and also this thing published by Mathewson. And it's the basis of a key decolonized course. So let me list some of the decolonized courses that we have done, which have actually been taught. Science 1 was done, it was designed and taught in Al Bukhari University for 3 groups of people. And then because there was a demand, the students liked the course very much, they wanted another course, so we taught history of social science too. There's a third course on mathematics, just to show that mathematics is not universal. This is calculus without limits. Physics, science, that calculus was not understood by Newton, therefore his physics went faulty. How do you correct it? So this is the correction, what are the changes that are made? So this is what was recommended in that conference on decolonizing mathematics and science. Statistics for social science, of course for everything else, particularly for social science. Open source computing. I discussed all that in my abstract, which I thought we would read and cover. And finally ethics, because if you change the worldview, you change your understanding of mathematics, you change your understanding of physics, your understanding of the world changes, and contrary to what Hegel said, it does depend on the nature of the world. That's why he didn't understand. He thought that ethics is only about, it's deontified. It's not. Alright, so let me just discuss it very briefly what we have done. What's the key issue in the history and philosophy of science course? That the Western history of science is false, and the philosophy that comes out of it is infiltrated with Christian metaphysics. It is not universal, and therefore you have to reject some part of it. So these were tried out on about 5 groups, SPS 1, SPS 2 courses. Maybe I can give you a picture of those groups, or maybe I'll give that, maybe I should give you a picture. Where is it gone? So this is the first group of students, and you can see what is the kind of activity they are engaged in. They went from there to measure the size of the earth, something which was not known until 1672 in Europe. So easy to measure, anybody can do it. So that was the thing they were taught, that they went at sunset and they measured the angular dip of the horizon. From that you can compute the radius of the earth. This is something that was known to Indians and Arabs thousands of years earlier. It was not known in the West. Just to show, just as Greeks and Romans were backward in arithmetic, they were backward in the calendar, and all those claims about Greeks and Romans are highly inflated, totally, not only there is no evidence for it, evidence comes from 1500 years earlier, but there is plenty of counter evidence. The calendar was defective, stayed defective until 1582, when they got documents from India. Matteo Ricci, cleverest who got documents from India. Okay, so this is an example of what these students did, what this course did, why they were happy about it. So syllabus is online, course material is online. Uncle Idris said it's not online, very much online. The entire course is online for the 3 different groups. There are plenty of books. There is my book, Cultural Foundations of Mathematics, the 500-page volume from the Project of History of Indian Science, Philosophy and Culture. Already mentioned is Science Western in Origin. Euclid and Jesus to explain what is the Christian metaphysics in present-day mathematics. At the level of 1 plus 1 equal to 2. I think I have that open. So you are aware of, maybe I'll do that in the next slide. Okay, so what are the key difficulties that the students had? If you are going to change things, Western science works, we don't know. But it works. They send a man to the moon. Right? So what was the answer? The key answer is that it works better. Send a man to the moon, but when you look at the spacecraft passing by Earth, there is something called a flyby anomaly, which cannot be explained by Newtonian physics, cannot be explained by general theory of relativity. Anyway, Newtonian physics fails at the level of the galaxy. So it works better, math works better, science works better. That is one answer. I need a long time to explain how it works better, to go into details. Second answer was no package deal. Something works, something does not work, you cannot just take the whole package. Alright, which may have lots of things which you don't like. If you're thirsty, you have Coca-Cola, you don't want a package deal. Right? So you have to separate what works from what does not. A simple way of explaining it, the answer which they best understood was through history. And the answer through history was that the practical value that you have got comes from the stuff which went to Europe. For example, arithmetic went to Europe starting in the 10th century. Pope Sylvester ultimately introduced mathematics 5 minutes more. Then we have to have a little stretchable time. The conversation ends when it is over, not when the clock strikes. So the practical value comes from what was imported by the West or exported to the West. What does not work is the metaphysics that was added to it, because when you take something, a plant from one soil, take it somewhere else, the epistemology of mathematics in India was different from its epistemology in Europe. They need to understand it. Look at the kind of foolish mistake Pope Sylvester made, or look at the kind of foolish mistake. The very words like zero, sign, which comes from J, zero comes from cipher, which means something which you don't understand. The words like J, the words like trigonometry. The word trigonometry is connected to the concept of a circle, nothing to do with the triangle. The triangle is incidental. So there are a whole lot of such mistakes which tell you the entire history of how Gilpin blundered with this imported mathematics. And this becomes very serious in the case of calculus and its infinite series. So to understand it, they added metaphysics of limits and so on. And that does not work. It has no practical value, so you have to get rid of it. This was packaged and re-exported during colonialism as part of colonial education. And the key point that was made was this: we are superior, therefore we accept it. We have to examine it, we have to see why we study it. We study it for its practical value. Most of the people study mathematics for its practical value. So you give them the practical value, get rid of the metaphysics. What does the metaphysics do? Well, I just wanted to give you an example. This proof of 1 plus 1 equal to 2 by Russell takes 378 pages. And that 378 page is this. Total, it doesn't make sense. Right? It doesn't make sense. It's gibberish. What have you got? So the idea is that get rid of the metaphysics, and that metaphysics happens to be religiously biased. The difficult things to discuss, but there is a movement going on. There's a petition. Yeah, I'll just stop. Give me please. I'm finishing with one more course. It adds nothing to the practical value of mathematics. So this course was tried with 8 groups in 5 universities. I want to show you at least some pictures of those people so that you get some idea of what was done. We can stretch time a little bit. So if you look at this, here are the groups. So this is a group in Sarnath. Then there is a group in Ambedkar University. Then there is a group in Iran. And so on. So this was taught in various places, this course. Okay, point is that a normal calculus text, it takes 1250 pages with fine print. The test was that you can measure it and you can teach the whole thing in 5 days and take questions at random from those calculus texts which the students would be able to do. And there's a report of that. You can take a look at it. Various reports explaining what is the bias, the metaphysics, and what was the minimum more pages. The decolonized physics that Newtonian mechanics failed because Newton didn't understand the calculus, okay? And that a non-mechanistic physics is possible. This is very critical. If you have a different science which is non-mechanistic, which is compatible with everyday observation, then we are non-mechanistic. You need a science like that, and such a science does exist based on my book. Okay, I won't go into that. There are recent papers in physics education explaining this whole thing. Statistics for social science, the whole concept of probability, and there is a philosophy of zeroism, which links into that, so you can bypass the Kolmogorov axioms, debate better, etc., etc. Finally, there is the issue of ethics. Ethics is central to education. If you have a non-mechanistic science, your ethics changes. If you have a mechanistic science, ethics becomes irrelevant. And this is discussed in 11 Pictures of Time and in Harmony Principle. And one of the things that 11 Pictures of Time discusses is that time is not measured by the clock. Thank you very much.